Happy Saturday. What is going on, world? It is, once again, Life of Mark, Mark Bland, Sports Talk with Mark, episode 4, live in Los Angeles at the Good News Radio's headquarters here. Also follow us, listen to us on the Good News Radio app, part of the Good News Sports team. What's going on with y'all, world? Again, episode 4. They haven't kicked me off the air yet, which means I'm doing something right, and I'm pretty grateful. So, just to fill y'all in before we get to today's show, I've been binge watching the show Billions on Showtime for this past week and a half. I started season 1 last summer. I think if you guys, anybody that watches the show features actors Damian Lewis and Paul Giamatti. It's pretty much Wolf of Wall Street times like 10. It's an awesome show. It's brilliant. People get corrupt. People do whatever they need to do to maintain power, get power, decrease other people's power. I am in love with the show. Brian Koppelman, one of the creators of the show, actually has his own podcast, which I also listen to every now and then. It's amazing. And as soon as this thing is over, I'm running back home, and I'm going to keep binge watching my show because I need to get up to season 4, which already has started. I think episode 2 of season 4 starts up tomorrow. And then another thing, again, as I tell you guys a little bit bits and pieces about my life, which is still kind of hard for me to do and being open at times, so I'm still getting used to this. I've been listening to this audiobook, which is, I don't do that a lot, and because I spend so much time in my car due to LA traffic. For anybody that listens, not even listens, but lives in LA, and you guys know that you're in your cars a lot, so hopefully you guys listen to me while you're either in your car, at the gym, or if you're just killing time. I appreciate it. But back to the subject, listen to this audiobook. It's called Who is Michael Ovitz? It's a phenomenal book. The book is an autobiography / memoir by Michael Ovitz, who is, for those that don't know, the former leader and also founder, one of the co-founders of Prominent Sports and Talent Agency, CAA, which is based here in LA. It gives you so many, details as to how Hollywood was ran, how it's run now, the things they've done to be creative and innovative in the industry, and how movies and music and sports, that's all brought to life. So I recommend anybody that, in the entertainment business, in sports business, or that just wants to know more about it, for one of the prominent figures who has pioneered a lot into what we see and do and recognize today. But today, it's not a me show. I have a special guest on. And before we bring him on, just play a quick little soundbite of his work. Maybe you guys have heard of him. Maybe you guys haven't. But let's take a listen here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PBC on FS1. I'm Ray Flores. Tonight, there are contenders who hope to graduate to championship-level fighters, and tonight, they have their opportunity.
All right. So that voice you guys just heard, that is the voice of announcer for PBC, Showtime Digital, and Fox Sports Boxing. Ray Flores, what's going on, man?
Mark, it is a pleasure to join you on this Saturday, my friend. And you know what? The congratulations on 4 episodes. I think it's wonderful that we have new spice, new flavor, new options when it comes to sports media, and you're certainly one of them. So congrats on everything. Look forward to seeing things moving forward.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. So for everybody out there, so Ray Flores, newfound friend of mine, almost a year now. So so one of my colleagues that I work with in the college sports space happens to be Ray's lovely significant other, Miss Olivia. So again, thanks, Liv, for the intro. When Liv told me about you, then when she was like, "Yeah, I'm dating this guy. He's doing this boxing thing," and I was just like, "Hold on, wait a minute, boxing? Yeah, all right, wait. You got my attention." And so when she gave me a little bit more info and started playing some of your sound clips and sound bites at work on the prominent YouTube, I was like, "Oh, all right, this guy's up to something." And so we finally met, and then you told me a little bit about your story, but to the listeners out there, so tell us a little bit, and also, by the way, guys, he's a Midwest boy himself. He's from Chicago. I'm from Detroit, as you guys all clearly know. So two Midwest guys are here on the phone. But Ray, tell us a little bit about your journey, man. How'd you get into the sport? What made you attractive to it? Did you fight growing up? So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, Mark, you're very kind, and yes, my amazing girlfriend Olivia introduced us, and we've hit it off ever since. I got involved in combat sports when I was 17 years old. Grew up loving boxing, watching Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., who is, in my opinion, the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. Watched his pay-per-views with my father, and I mean, he was a very influential part of me growing up because of what he meant to. I'm Mexican American, and some of my family's from Mexico, and what Chavez meant to the Mexican people. And I remember being very early, 2, 3 years old, watching his fights
Mm-hmm.
on pay-per-view, and it was a big bonding experience between myself and my father and my entire family. Fast forward to when I was 17, I grew up in the Chicago area, right outside of, in Indiana, in East Chicago, Indiana. There was a local fighter named Miguel Torres who was fighting in MMA at the time. And that was before, this is back in '04, '05, before mixed martial arts became what it is, thanks to the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working at a local TV station, started doing interviews with him, following him around, and then we started doing his fights on public access TV a week later that we would show. Went to Columbia College, started getting involved in, much like you, did an MMA and a boxing radio show, and started to meet some people, and then started ring announcing, and then it just kind of built from there. And I've been in this business almost half my life, and it's something that I would never give up whatsoever, when it comes to the experiences that I've had and the places that I've traveled all over the world.
Nice, man. Well, and, and now that you've had your career in the boxing arena, you know, for me as a fan of the sport, and I've been, very aware of the sport, and I've always watched it I watched it a lot as a kid growing up. So, me being a '90s child, I was, I tagged along to with my uncles and sometimes my mom to fight parties where it was, a little bit towards the end of the Tyson era, but Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, watching those guys in the transition to what Manny Pacquiao's, the Floyd Mayweathers, those type of guys. So from your experience and just watching the evolution of the boxing genre, the boxing sport itself, at one point we were very, heavyweight dominant, and then it became light heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in, the lighter weights, middleweight, featherweight. How have you seen that transition from what it once was and where we watched big guys to now we're watching just a lot of these little dudes just going at it? And what do you think about that transition as far as popularity?
I think this is the healthiest. And Mark, I've been around boxing, and I mentioned for, going over, I mean, I got my first fight that I worked was in 2005. So I've been involved in this business for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the healthiest that I've ever seen boxing because, as you pointed out about the days of Tyson and Holyfield and the Chavez seniors of the world. And then, we had that long late lull of top level heavyweights because the Klitschko brothers, Vladimir and Vitaly, were dominating it, and they fought predominantly in Eastern Europe, on Germany and in Russia, stuff like that. But now we're seeing that the heavyweight division is back, and the one weight class that has always been so healthy and has been the money division in boxing, with the exception of the heavyweight division, has been the welterweight division. We had that era in the late 90s and early 2000s with De La Hoya and Fernando Vargas and Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather.
Mm-hmm.
And with the welterweight division is still very healthy, but we're seeing more of, I think the featherweight division is one of the most exciting divisions in boxing. The bantamweight division, 118 is a weight class to keep your eye on. But now you have Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, really making headway. I mean, Deontay Wilder is going to fight Dominic Brazil May 18th at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. 2 weeks after that, Anthony Joshua defends his title against Jarrell Miller at Madison Square Garden. So the heavyweight division is in a wonderful state, and we're seeing that boxing is on so many top-level networks, Fox, Showtime, ESPN, DAZN, and there's a lot of money being thrown around because there is a demand for it. The people are really reigniting, or we're generating new fans, and I think that's wonderful for the sport, and it's wonderful for, there are no such thing as too many basketball games on. There's no such thing as too many football games on. Well, boxing has the same thing. There are a lot of different options that you can watch in a variety of different networks.
Yeah, and to your point with the the health of the sport as it is and generating the new fan base, what do you attribute for you being an insider and also a fan yourself of the sport itself? What do you attribute that new growth and the not I wouldn't say newfound success, but the rise in the sport again from its popularity? Because I do remember at a point where I thought the sport itself was going to potentially die with the infliction of mixed martial arts, so the MMA, so Bellators, the UFCs, those two particular leagues coming in and introducing combat fighting fans to not just punches, but now we got kicks and where people jumping and doing Bruce Lee stuff in the middle of a ring and getting paid millions of dollars to do it. So what do you attribute this growth of boxing to?
What I will say, Mark, is I will say it's the commitment by the network. Steven Espinoza, the head of Showtime, who is, they are under CBS, and they're putting money on the table. They are going to the network, to their bosses, and they're saying they're making a commitment. CBS, Showtime, they're making a commitment financially. Fox has made a significant, contribution financially and putting their marketing power, the money necessary to be able to create these bigger fights. ESPN, the same thing, creating and getting deals done with top-level organizations like the Premier Boxing Champions that I happen to work for, like a Bob Arum's Top Rank Incorporated, like Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Boxing, the Golden Boy Promotions that has Canelo Alvarez. So it's these networks that are coming to the forefront that are putting forth their money on the table, signing long-term commitments with these entities, with these promotional companies, and that's why the fights are getting made. I mean, I was there last Saturday at AT&T Stadium down in Arlington where they had almost 50,000 people to see Errol Spence defeat Mikey Garcia. If you would have told me that, even 3 or 4 years ago, I said that's a dream, but would it happen? I didn't know, and lo and behold, I mean, Errol Spence fought on the undercard of Jamal Charlo and Wilkie Camford back in November of 2015. They fought in Dallas at this place called the Bomb Factory where they had 2,000 people on a Saturday afternoon on NBC. Fast forward to almost 3.5 years later, and Spence has drawn almost 50,000 people to watch him fight Mikey Garcia at Jerry World. I mean, I think the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, and with that, really cool experience, which I got to see, on your social media. So, by the way, guys, if you don't know, follow Ray on his Instagram, SBR Flores. That is the Instagram handle. Follow him. He'll give you great content, a lot of cool stuff, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, too, which if anybody's, wanting to get into the sport of boxing, follow him. He'll definitely give you the insight that you need, and he's also entertaining as hell. And I definitely approve.
Oh, well, awesome, Mark. Also, you see a lot of amazing meals prepared by Olivia,
Yes.
That,
yes.
I always have to constantly blast out because, man, oh, man, she keeps me fed well before I get, make my way on the road. So.
Yeah, she definitely gives you like a goodbye meal every time. I'm just like, this guy has it made. Well, yeah, so going back to, your time in Dallas and even other travels that you've done both, within the United States and then internationally as well. Take us through what that process is like. So let's go from how you get on a fight, and then from the time that you are contracted to do a fight to the travel, your itinerary to the actual time that it's when the bell dings. So take us a little bit through that process.
Okay, so what happens, Mark, is we go ahead and we'll get a schedule, or it'll be a month and a half to 2 months out. And I'm the ring announcer for PBC on FS1. I'm involved in their Fox shows. I'm involved also in their working for Showtime on the digital standpoint. So when a fight gets announced by Showtime or by FS1, I'll get an email by one of my bosses, just going ahead and, life happens, making sure I'm available. I'll say yes. 99.9% of the time I am ready to rock and roll. And then they will ask me, I fly American Airlines because American takes care of me, and I'll send them what I would like to fly in. And then I'll ask them, this is good, right? And then they'll say yes. They'll send me my flight confirmation. They'll let me know where I'm staying hotel-wise. And then, honestly, it's kind of like we run it's such a good machine when it comes to Showtime, when it comes to Fox. And I don't really hear from too many people, with the exception of a bout changed here, or we're going to go with this fight first, this fight second. I do my own prep work. I don't really, I'm focused on what I have to do. And during the course of the week, I prepare and get myself ready to go. I look at the matchups. I read articles, and then typically, thank goodness for LAX. I think LAX is one of the best airports in the nation. I know some people say I'm crazy,
Yeah, they
but
do.
I love being able to fly in on a red eye flight. So I have a fight tomorrow night. PBC on FS1, Sergey Lipinets, Lamont Peterson. I'll fly out on a red eye tonight at 1 in the morning, get into DC around 11 o'clock, and then go to my room, kind of, organize myself, and then head to, the arena for rehearsals. We'll do rehearsals, and then we go live on the air at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 local time, and away we go. So, that's sort of the process from start to finish when it comes to how I do my everyday life when it comes to promotions and events.
Okay. Yeah, and that's really good insight for everybody, Ray. We definitely appreciate you, taking us, behind the curtain on how that entire process works and what, the role that you play in that. So, and with going off of that, and so with all the traveling, all the different arenas, all the different fighters, as anybody knows who's watched any big time fighting matchup, and if it's not fighting, they've watched any other big time sports event. You always have the glitz and glamour of it all, which sometimes people can, get used to, or they get sick of it pretty fast. So you've met plenty of fighters, but tell us some of the big other personalities you met, just doing all these fights, from guys and women sitting ringside. Give us the gossip about that part. And now, when I say gossip, don't tell me none they ish. But tell me, just tell us all some of their, some of those big famous names you met out there in the world traveling.
Well, I mean, I've seen, it's pretty crazy, Mark, that you mentioned it. And I, one of my first fights, one of my first big fights that I worked the undercard of Mayweather Canelo back in September of 2013. And I remember seeing Denzel Washington. I walked out of the arena, the MGM Grand Garden Arena, and this is before T-Mobile Arena was built.
Okay.
And I remember walking behind Denzel Washington. I remember, being a Chicago boy, and I know that he isn't like a top-level celeb, but I remember going and getting a Diet Coke at the MGM during Mayweather Canelo, and I remember seeing Charles Oakley just hanging out. And Charles Oakley, for those, I mean, you cover all sports.
Oh, yeah, I know about Big
Charles
Oak.
Oakley, Big Oak was one of Michael Jordan's best friends. He was getting, a drink at the bar, things along those lines. Jack Nicholson sat behind us at one of the fights. I sat next to Sugar Ray Leonard during Mayweather McGregor when he was calling the pay-per-view for the International. So I've had some pretty cool moments of being in the same area. I actually was fortunate to ride the private jet with the Mayweather promotion staff during Mayweather McGregor, seeing Conor McGregor through, get on his private jet, seeing Floyd roll in with his people as we were going from city to city, part of that whole promotional tour. So I've had some pretty amazing moments. I'm very blessed, as I'd like to say, Mark, and I'll never forget that.
For sure, man. Now, you mentioned Money Mayweather. Anybody that's ever watched, the All Access, the 24/7s, leading up to his fights in the past, I mean, this guy puts on a show. I mean, he's a magnet for the cameras, and flashy as all get out, flashy as hell. But you've talked with him, you've seen him when that camera is off. Is there a difference? Is the persona a show, or is that who he just really is? Because I'm curious to know.
The one thing I will tell you, Mark, is that when you're when you're a prize fighter and you're getting ready to step in the ring, and it's just you and another man going head to head, or you and another person, because women's MMA is becoming popular, very popular. Women's boxing, same thing. But you have to flip that switch. You have to become that ultra alpha male. When I have seen Floyd away from the cameras, Floyd is very quiet. He's very much with those that are closest to him. He has a lot of people around him, but he's quiet. He's been very nice, nothing but gracious to me, very nice to me. So I look at it as when those cameras are on and when he's doing his promotional work or when he's preparing for a fight, he becomes a different person, because that's what he needs to do in order to try to gain a psychological edge and a physical edge over his opponent. So there is a difference. The same thing with me, and I'm not a prize fighter, but the same thing with me is that when that light goes on, I become amplified times 10 as a person, because that's what as a fan, you want to see people that are enthusiastic, entertaining, and passionate. When that light goes off, and I am watching Netflix at home with Olivia, I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm more quiet, and I just kind of let things be. Whereas when those lights come on, you have to become that ultra alpha male, which is why you see the Money Mayweather persona, where he was throwing dollar bills or he's out and trying to antagonize his opponents. That was obviously before Mayweather McGregor, but back in the day. So there is a difference between Mayweather, the person, and Mayweather when the lights are on, the cameras are on, because Floyd, there's no better showman in all of boxing than Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, being on that tour with Floyd and also with McGregor, which by the way was one of the biggest fights of all time. And how much money did that fight produce, if you remember?
I think I think $400 to $500 million, if not more. Mark, I mean, they were counting so much money. I forgot even to ask.
But how was it being on that worldwide tour with them? And again, if not the biggest fight of all time, one of the largest fights of all time. How was just that entire experience, again, with so much attention on both of those individual fighters and the spectacle of can McGregor take down, Mayweather, who was undefeated and still is undefeated, remains undefeated, or is, Mayweather going to wipe the floor with him, which he actually did. Just how was that entire experience, again, to be on such a large and grand scale stage like that?
Mark, it was the best experience of my entire career because, what I did was I was the in-arena host for all four cities, Los Angeles, Toronto, New York, and London. And I actually hosted the London press conference on my own. 11,500 fans sold out. Everywhere we went was just jam-packed. And it's funny, when you asked me about, celebrity stories, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent and tell you that when we were in Toronto, I was pumping the crowd up, getting them ready to see Mayweather McGregor. Well, we're in Toronto. That's Drake's hometown. So
Yep.
Drake comes, and I'm hearing, and one of my producers for the in-arena tour tells me, he's like, Ray, you have to kill some time. Drake went into Conor McGregor's locker room. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I'm killing some time, doing giveaways for the fans. The producer comes to me again. He goes, Ray, Drake is in Floyd Mayweather's locker room. So because Drake wanted to talk to these guys individually, we had to delay the press conference by 45 minutes. So you got some stroke when you as a person can delay a press conference from happening. But to answer your question, the energy, the electricity, you have two icons, and Mayweather and McGregor being a part of one of the biggest fights of all time, to see them go and to see over thousands of people, and every tour, every stop, there were millions of people watching at home, online, on television. It was like traveling. You always hear about stories about traveling with the Beatles, traveling with the Bulls when Michael Jordan was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Well, I had a small opportunity to do that for 1 week. It was like traveling with a rock concert. Everywhere we went, we got stopped. It was crazy. We showed up to the hotel in London, Mark, and there were 3,000 Conor McGregor fans waiting to get a glimpse of the guy. It was unbelievable.
Oh, my goodness. Now, I guess to switch gears just a little bit and going back into the history of boxing, obviously you being a boxing historian just in your own right because of your affiliation, your love for it, who in your mind have been some of your favorite fighters to watch as a fan, not in person, but as a fan?
As a fan, obviously Julio Cesar Chavez is a fan. Sugar Ray Leonard, I didn't watch, maybe I saw one or two Sugar Ray Leonard fights when I was a kid, but watching old tapes of him, he was unbelievable. Mike Tyson is someone who cannot be denied because of the explosive power that he had, and just that he was such a polarizing figure. So Tyson, Chavez, watching Muhammad Ali fights back in, when he was doing his thing, and I mean I've seen the Rumble in the Jungle and the greatest fight of all time in Madison Square Garden between him and Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier is another guy who I thought, had probably the most wicked left hook of all time. But Muhammad Ali, I think, is the best ever. And just watching those greats, Roberto Duran, another one, Tommy Hearns, those kind of throwback fighters. And we're starting to get throwback fighters, and we're starting to see that old mentality come into the forefront of the younger generation, which is why I think boxing continues to rise in popularity once again.
Okay. And going into your career, so now taking the fan side out of it, but into your career, what are some of the best fights you've been a part of to witness?
I would have to say, obviously, Mayweather McGregor because of the historical significance of what that event meant, being a part of it from start to finish, the kickoff press conference, the grand arrivals during the week, the press conference, being at the fight, being a part of it. Wilder Fury was special to me because this was the most significant heavyweight fight in over 15 years in Los Angeles. And to call the fight for the international, that was special to me. Even recently as to last Saturday, Spence and Garcia, that meant a lot to me too, because I did the kickoff press conference in Dallas with Jerry Jones. And I remember I was at AT&T Stadium twice, one for a football game and another one for, WrestleMania. And to be able to be calling a fight from Cowboys Stadium on the biggest night of the year for boxing thus far really meant a lot to me sentimentally. So those are some of the three big events that I can remember that I have been fortunate enough to call and be a part of. It's one of those things as to, this is why we do what we do. This is why I've traveled over 100,000 miles the past 5 to 6 years to be a part of it. And also another one that was significant to me is in October, I did Naoya Inoue. He was a world champion from Japan, to be able to ring announce his world title fight against Juan Carlos Payano and 18,000 fans at Yokohama Arena in Tokyo, Japan. That was pretty significant as well. So those are four that stand out immediately to me.
For sure, man. Now, looking into the future, who are some of the fighters right now that everybody needs to pay attention to, no matter what weight class or weight division? Who do we need to pay attention to, Ray?
Look, Mark, the one thing about me, my man, and that you've always known about me and that your listeners will know is I'm real. And I'm going to tell you, the guy you need to watch out for, Errol Spence, who just picked up a win over Mikey Garcia. This guy can be one of the all-time greats. What he did to Mikey Garcia, he didn't lose a round. He didn't lose a minute of that fight and dominated from start to finish. Mikey's never had himself dominated that way ever in his career, not even for a minute of his professional career. Deontay Wilder, who is the WBC heavyweight champion of the world, when he hits you, you tumble. This guy has put on the canvas every single opponent that he has fought. The only guy that got up was Tyson Fury, and I don't know how that man got up from those shots in the 12th round at Staples Center. I mean, that's beyond me. Another one that you have to pay attention to is a super middleweight that, as you saw on my Instagram, I had to kind of keep him away from J. Leon Love.
Yeah.
David Benavidez. He's 22 years old, from Phoenix, Arizona, Mexican-American. This kid is going to be something very special. So Spence, Benavidez, Deontay Wilder, guys you have to keep your eye on for, because I'm telling you, Mark, those guys have been in fights. I've never seen them not entertained. And you love entertainment. Prepare to be entertained when those guys get inside the ring.
I love it. I love it. All right. So it's a lot of boxing. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the world too, Ray. So we're going to switch sports completely. But we definitely, I definitely appreciate all of this, because I mean, I'm in this studio by myself, but I'm just like juiced up, ready to go watch a fight. And I know you got the fight coming up here tomorrow. Matter of fact, the fight you are doing tomorrow, how can we watch that? How can we see you? How can we listen to you, man?
My man, all you have to do is tune in to FS1. See, this is not, you can watch the NCAA tournament, but we had 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific time, Sergey Lipinets, Lamont Peterson from MGM National Harbor. I'll be ringing on scene. So tomorrow night, 6 o'clock local time here on the West Coast, and that'll be on FS1. So check it out. We're going to have a heck of a night of fights. Sergey Lipinets, Lamont Peterson, both of them former world champions, trying to get back in the win column after their fights. So that'll be tomorrow night at 6 o'clock local time.
Dope stuff, guys. FS1. If y'all don't got cable, I know a lot of millennials out here, especially me too. Cable cord cutters. Get the Fox Sports Go app, watch the fight, listen to my man Ray. He'll definitely put on a good show for you. I've heard him live in person. Matter of fact, you had me out to the one fight in Ontario a couple months ago, which, by the way, fulfilled a childhood dream of mine, just to sit ringside at a fight. I was like 10 years old at that fight, just watching every single one, from the undercards to the main event. And the main event actually put on a good show. So, again, appreciate that. I look forward to being at another fight this year. All right. So, switching gears. NCAA tournament is on, which you already mentioned, Ray. And I know you and girlfriend got a little bracket challenge going on over there. So whose bracket is busted the most right now after 2 days of basketball?
Well, it's still early on, Mark, and I got to tell you, Olivia's behind me by a game or two. But again, I have Duke making it to the, to winning the whole thing. She's stuck with her WCC alliances and allegiances. She's got Gonzaga winning the whole thing. So we're going to start to see who's going to have to pick up the bill at Mastro's over these next few days and stuff. So neither bracket is busted, but there's certainly a lot riding on the line over these next few days.
Now,
so I'm very curious to see how it all unfolds.
Now, what made you pick Duke? Because I have my skepticism of Duke and a lot of teams. For me, a lot of the teams that have the one and dones, I don't ever think they're going to win the thing. Just for it's a lot of reasons for me personally behind it. But what made you pick Duke? Because I got Gonzaga win the whole thing too, for a number of reasons.
Here's the thing, Mark. As I grew up watching pro wrestling, and I'm going to take a term from Ric Flair, who said, in order to be the man, you have to beat the man. And in my opinion, as I look at college basketball as a whole, Zion Williamson is the man. And it is hard for me to think that a team can stop this monster and that machine that is Duke. So Zion, the best player in the tournament, and if he is even remotely healthy, which Duke scared me a little bit yesterday against North Dakota State. I don't even know that North Dakota State was a school. I'm sorry for those fans that are yours that are from North Dakota State, Mark, but I didn't even know that was a school, my man. But it's hard for me to think that Duke is going to be stopped because Zion is that dominant. I think when he gets to the NBA, he could be Rookie of the Year. He's that good. He is the man. And in order to beat Duke, you're going to have to beat the man that's Zion Williamson, and I don't think anybody can do it.
I think so many teams out there are very capable of beating Duke. North Carolina, for one, can beat them. However, both times they did beat Duke, Zion was not on the court. So, granted, I'll give them that asterisk. But for me and my philosophy as far as NCAA champs in the last several years, and I think I mentioned this on the show last week when I had my other guest, Michael, on, but I just think that teams in the modern NCAA, until things have changed with the one and done rule, if you have guys in there that are sophomores, juniors, and some seniors that went to school with the intention of going to play college basketball because they wanted to versus going there as a pit stop to the NBA, there is a level of care and passion for this tournament that a lot of those teams with upperclassmen have. In addition to having upperclassmen, those guys get to be 19, 20, 21, in some cases 22 years old, when you're still playing a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds. So already, I already give my upper hand to the quote-unquote grown men versus the guys that are there who could care less, I think, about winning an NCAA title. I mean, we look again over the last several years. You get Villanova, who's won it a couple of times. North Carolina, who had a very veteran together team. Even Louisville, when they went on their run, veterans versus a lot of these one and done schools like a Duke, like a Kentucky. Now, granted, Kentucky did win several years ago with Anthony Davis, but that's one of the few with a one and done class to actually win the whole thing. And that team that year was also really, really beyond special. Not to say that this Duke team isn't either, but I think they can be beat because of if you have guys and you have a great coach who can essentially scheme Zion out the game, the rest of the team will crumble. Because to your point, Zion is the man for Duke, but if you can eliminate him, Duke is about as good as anybody else as far as getting got. In my opinion. That's
very true, and you've seen Gonzaga play, and I've been following them based on obviously being a part of and seeing the WCC.
Yeah.
And they're a complete team, but again, it's that Zion is special, and I can't see anyone stopping him collectively as a unit. If he's truly special, Mark, then he, like Anthony Davis, writes his own legacy in just 1 year and then makes his way to the NBA. I think Zion is the real deal. But again, over these next 3 weeks, that is March Madness in April, we're going to find out.
Yeah, we are. And I am intrigued to see what happens with Duke and as well as Zion transition to the NBA in the next several months later on this year. But sticking with basketball and going towards the NBA, you live out here in LA with me, man. The Lakers are officially out of the playoffs as of last night because of their loss to the Brooklyn Nets. What the hell? Like, what the hell?
Look. I don't want to hear, Mark. I know we're here in LA, and I know people got all excited about LeBron James, this and that. Guess what?
A portion of the
LeBron
population
James
did. Only a portion did. Because the rest of them, like the Kobe stands, like, they put on for Kobe. They definitely did. And
well, I just, I look at it this way, Mark. Now I don't want to hear that LeBron James is the greatest of all time. He came to LA to set up his film career and his producing career. Did he really care about the Lakers that much? In my opinion, the answer is absolutely not. And that is why there's turmoil amongst the Lakers organization. That's why there's all this discussion. How could they miss on Paul George? How could they, screw up the whole Anthony Davis thing? Well, you look at one guy. You look at the most self-sabotaging player in the NBA, and that's LeBron James. So
why do you call numbers don't lie. Why do you call it self-sabotaging? Why do you call it self-sabotaging? That's hilarious.
Because look what he's done. Look what he did to Cleveland. Look how many coaches he's gotten fired. Look at how much in turmoil the Lakers are as an organization. Lonzo Ball didn't get better this year. Who really got better on that team, with the exception of Kyle Kuzma, who last time I checked, you guys were, Kyle Kuzma got himself better in the summer by himself, not because of LeBron James. So I think that LeBron needs to take a step back and needs to stop playing GM, let those that do it give his opinion, but not actually be the GM, because the Lakers are in a ton of trouble. And the fact that they didn't even make the playoffs this year, I'm sounding like Jim Moore. Like, playoffs? How would the Lakers not make the playoffs? Give me a break.
Yeah. And I think to your point, too, and you mentioned, him being self-sabotaging, and you also mentioned how he came out to L.A. for non-basketball reasons. So I was, doing my listening from other shows, the past week and a half. And one take that I did hear, I wouldn't even call it a take, but it was an observation. Between Cleveland, Miami, back to Cleveland, and L.A., the only time he made a decision on switching teams for basketball reasons was Miami. Everything else was for not necessarily basketball reasons. Going back home to Cleveland was sentimental. Coming out here was for life after basketball, and also he just wanted to live in L.A., which I don't blame him. Hell, L.A. recruited you out of Chicago, and L.A. got me from Detroit, so I ain't mad at him on that one.
That's true.
So that and also it does that to millions of other people that live in the city that cause traffic on a day-to-day basis. But with him, and you said it too, Ray. You said the point. You made the point of him not being a GM and just playing the game and let other people do it for him, which again happened in Miami when Pat Riley, who stood up to him and said, "No, you are the player. I'm running this team, and my coach is my coach. You will listen to him." Look what they got accomplished in 4 years. 4 finals appearances plus 2 championships out of the 4. And I think they could have went again had he stayed. But, I mean, yeah, I think to your point again, I'm agreeing with you. Just play basketball, dude. Play basketball. The life after basketball, we know it's coming. You've already started it. And I just think if he wants to end LA on a good note, just play ball and do your thing. Get to the playoffs and then strive for that championship. But we'll see what happens.
That's true, man. And he just has to focus in on basketball. That's all. And then, see what happens. But, his finals record's not looking too good. He's below 500. And that, to me, says below average. So he's got some things to rectify, my friend.
No, for sure. Well, yeah, man. So outside of that, I mean, we got baseball coming up, and enjoy the Dodgers game on April 1st. Have at it.
Well, thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. I will definitely, this will be, Olivia and I's first Dodger Giant game. So excited
just wear
about
blue.
That rivalry.
Don't wear orange.
Northern California and Southern California.
Just wear blue. Do not wear orange. I'm telling you, save yourself. Just save yourself.
I definitely will, my man. Always, look, I had a blast joining you, my friend. Always great seeing you. Continue to do an amazing job. And you know what? It's wonderful to see, a younger group and fresh things. I mean, look, the one thing I like is fresh ingredients when it comes to something I'm eating. The same thing when it comes to how I digest my sports information. You're new, you're fresh, you certainly have a lot of flavor to you, and man, keep it up because you're doing an amazing job.
Hey, I appreciate. Hey, and then one last thing before you go. So, on the
Yeah.
Good News Radio app, which everybody that's listening to the show is listening off of, and that's the only way you can get it. We do have a little chat room that's open, and we did have at least one question. My boss man, Mr. Keith Good News himself, he when we were talking about boxing, he said, "I still don't know where all the money comes from." You being a boxing insider, help him out. Where does the money for boxing come from? So with the amount of money that Mayweather has put up in Mayweather Promotions, you got Golden Boy Promotions. You even have the channel, The Zone, which I actually forgot to mention.
Yes.
Canelo, he just got the 11-year deal for. No, it was 11. It's a 5-year.
11 fights.
11 fights. Yes, 11 fights, 5-year deal worth what? I think it's like 150.
$365 million.
$365 million. I screwed that up by half. But where does the money, Ray? Where does this money come from? Which I am actually curious about. Where does the money come from to put on all these fighters?
Mark, I'm gonna sound a little bit like Darren Ravel, the sports business insider. But what happens is that the network has X amount, and they will go to the promotion of the fighters and say, okay, if the fight's going to be on premium cable television or whatever network it's going to be on, this is what we're offering for this fight. When it comes to, the Wilder and Brazil fight that'll be on Showtime, premium cable, they will go and say, this is what we're willing to pay for this fight. Then you have the arenas who are bidding for these fights, like Barclays Center, Staples Center, Dignity Health Sports Park, T-Mobile Arena, MGM Grand Garden, Madison Square Garden. The arenas then will bid for the fight. So that's more money. So you have the network TV deal. You have the TV money. Then you have the money from the arena. Then you have the sponsors, because you need to have, typically there's an alcohol sponsor. Who's going to be the beer sponsor? Will it be Corona, Tecate? Who's going to be the, more of the sponsors, and then you go ahead and you keep dividing up that pie if it's on pay-per-view, and then the international TV rights, because I call the fights, a lot of the bigger fights, for the international audience in England and Australia. So the money from the different international partners, and then there's just so many different revenue streams that come together for one event that generate that pot. And then when it comes to pay-per-view, you have the split. Who's going to, how much is Floyd going to make from the pay-per-view, and et cetera, or how much the fighter's going to make from the pay-per-view? What's the split going to be? Is Wilder going to make 55% of the pay-per-view money? Will Fury make 45% of the money? Everyone divides all that up, and then everyone gets their piece of the pie, which is why it's so, it's so significant. And the thing is, and I was telling Olivia this, you want to be, if you're Staples Center can say they've now hosted the heavyweight championship of the world in recent memory with Wilder and Fury, and they generated 18,000 people with a gate of over $3.5 million. So these arenas, these networks, they look at it as an investment. And the reason why boxing is back where it is, my man, is because these networks, these entities are seeing a big return on their investment, and it's only going to get better.
Damn. All right. Well, that's where the money comes from. That's where the money comes from, y'all. Thank you for that little tidbit on the business behind boxing. But, yeah, Ray, appreciate you being on here. We got to do this again later on in the year when another big fight comes up. Much appreciated. Much love to you, man. Hey, guys, go follow him, SBR Flores, on Instagram. Do it. And listen to him. Watch his fight tomorrow night, FS1, 6 p.m. West Coast time, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can turn off basketball for at least an hour, if not 30 minutes, because I'm sure one of those fights are going to end early. Ray, thanks again, buddy.
Mark, keep up the great work, my man. Talk to you soon, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
I appreciate it, brother. Safe flight.
Later, man.
Yep. All right, y'all. That was my guest, Ray Flores, for today's episode. Again, big shout out to Ray for coming through and doing the call in. And I asked him to do this about, I think, 2 weeks ago. He was like, yeah, I'm on board with it. And with Ray being one of the first official guests of the show, we also did have Mike Hill, the point guard, on the show last week. Him jumping in on set and being late. Yeah, I'm still calling you out for that. But it's all good, man. We'd love to have you back. One of the things, too, we got coming up in the next several weeks. So Next week we got another guest. We got Alex Himes. Also, you guys can hear him on Courtside Radio every Thursday, 6:30 West Coast time, 9:30 Eastern on Good News Radio app. Following that, we actually do have my first athlete coming to the show. I'm gonna leave that as a little tease for you, but we do have our first athlete coming up. He is also coming from the fighting world as well. We got Super Agent, one of my good friends, coming in here next month too. I mean, we got a lot of good stuff for you guys. Yeah. Shout out to Kirsten saying, get on Mike Hill head. Yeah, I'm gonna stay on his head. Next time you come on my show, man, be on time. 1:30, get here, and you need your key back. Yeah, I'm throwing you under the bus right now. It's all good. It's all love, all jokes. But yeah, other thing too. Before I go, one thing that's always important to me, before I got into the show today, I was on the phone with my mother and my grandmother. We was, shooting it off a little bit, and laughing it up. I guess this is like my dedication hour, because this is something I guess I like to do. This one dedicated to my grandmother, aka Dobby, aka Grammy, but the world knows it as Reverend Diane Bland. So Grammy, love you. Hope you like the shout out. And she's also been a huge supporter in my sports career and my love for it. I could do an entire show based on just stories of her and I going to different sports camps, half the gifts she done bought me. Matter of fact, she got me my first NBA encyclopedia when I was 10 years old. I was in the 5th grade. I specifically remember it, and I think I still have it somewhere. Hopefully I can find it. I think it's back in Detroit. But yeah, she got me that thing, and also a bunch of trading cards, which I still have stuck in storage. I think I need to get rid of them. They still there in mint condition. But yeah, y'all, appreciate the show. Love y'all. And by the way, may you find peace in your life, be open to and share love, and be blessed. I'm out. I'm going back to watch Billions. See ya.